name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Christ is risen.
Truly is risen.
Already, it's the fourth Sunday of Pascha. Things go fast, don't they? So this is the day that we commemorate the paralytic and the healing of the paralytic. There's so much in this particular passage. I taught the children about it on Friday, and I hope you will look at that teaching. It's more of a, verse by verse kind of exegesis. But this is more from the heart. Everything I do is from the heart. But this is more, like I typically kind of go off on tangents and things like that. This is more just what I want to share with you from my heart. And whenever I read the scriptures, I circle things and I put little dots by things. 3 dots that is really important to me, or an arrow, or a circle, or I underline it. That's especially when I print it off. I don't generally do it in the book. I don't like to do that. So I want to just go through the things that I circled. There was plenty of them, to be honest with you. And we'll see, there's so much we can learn from this particular event. So, a certain man was by a sheep's pool. Now, the sheep's pool was a place where they washed the entrails of the sheep. So it was just probably a big bloody mess, actually. And there was the idea that this was holy water for the Jews, because an angel, invisibly, would come down and stir the water. And no, I don't know. I don't think he used a finger. That's one question I was asked, because angels don't have fingers. But he stirred up the water invisibly, and whoever got in was healed. And of course, there'd be people that are blind and lame and deaf and the rest. I would think the one who's lame or paralyzed has the least chance of getting down to the water, even with helpers. So he's there 38 years. And this is the beginning now of this deep theology that is in this particular passage. 38 years. The fathers talk about the significance of this number. So that 38 is 3 and 8. He had poor belief in the Trinity. That was one of the causes of his infirmity. Poor belief and faith in the Trinity. So many of us have poor faith in the Trinity. We might believe in the Trinity, but we don't really, if we really believe in the Trinity, then we wouldn't really be sinning, would we? So we have poor belief, poor faith in the Trinity. Sometimes because we don't pray dogmatically. I tell you all the time, you have to pray dogmatically. And some of you are resistant to that because what you are accustomed to is praying in your own words. Well, if you pray in your own words, say things like, Lord Jesus Christ, help me to be chaste this morning. Or, Lord Jesus Christ, help me not to think bad thoughts about people. Or whatever it is that you have trouble with. That's a good way to pray in your own words. But just discursive prayer with God and not dogmatic prayer it's dangerous, actually. You need to know the Holy Trinity. And you know the Holy Trinity by not knowing only things about Him, but by becoming like Him. And you have to have both. You have to have the dogmatic knowledge and then the application of the dogmatic knowledge. So this man had a poor knowledge of God. That's what the 3 signifies. And 8 is reminiscent of the 8th day. So what are we living for? I talk about this all the time. It's about all I really talk about. Our purpose in life. That's all that matters. So what was he living for? He wasn't living towards the 8th day. He was just living in the here and now. He was paralyzed. He was miserable. He wanted to be healed. And even if he'd been walking and totally normal physically, he had poor faith about the 8th day. He wasn't working towards that purpose. And that's all that should matter in you in life, is working towards that purpose. The purpose to be with God, to become like God, to not only have His image within you, but have His image become His likeness. That's the whole purpose of life. And we get into so many troubles because we have poor understanding of God, poor faith in the Trinity, poor understanding of who God is, and also just bad priorities. That causes us trouble all the time in almost anything. And yes, it can cause sickness, but it also can cause depression and anxiety and bad relationships and all the rest. So it's really important to cultivate correct belief in the Trinity. You get it all from the prayers. It's all there. And it's the prayers and the Psalter and the Gospels. Reading all those things with compunction. And also from the way you live. Struggling to live in a Christian and a righteous way. And then you'll be looking towards the 8th day. This is a temporary home. Everything about this place is temporary. It's all going away. and there'll be a new heavens and a new earth. And if you're living like you're a part of the old heavens and the old earth, you won't be part of it. So it's really critical to cultivate in your life an intense interior life. I didn't always know these things when I first became Orthodox. Like anyone else, I read a lot of things and saw, well, I guess it's not like anyone else, to be honest with you. A lot of people don't read, and I don't understand that. But I read voraciously everything, and I got a lot of facts. Fortunately, I also read things like Sayings of the Desert Fathers and the Philokalia. I read the Philokalia before I was baptized. I don't recommend that. But, nobody was telling me different, so I did. And look at me, I turned out all right. Sort of. So, you read these things and you start to develop understanding if you start to follow these things. So you have to develop an interior life. If you're just rolling off the prayers, or worse, just turning on the prayers on your phone or whatever, and as you're driving to work, you're missing the boat. That's not good. It's not good for you at all. You have to struggle to say your prayers, especially in the morning if you're working a normal kind of work day, which is, the morning and afternoon hours. You should absolutely pray before that. Now, if you're a monk or something and your schedule is that you have liturgy at 2 in the morning, well, then your day is a little bit different. Some of the morning you'll be sleeping. But for most of us, we get up in the morning and we go to work. Or we take care of our children, we do something, but we don't pray. Or if we do, we just pray a little bit, like as an afterthought, just to kind of put it in its place. You should be praying a lot in the morning. Now, maybe you shouldn't go to bed earlier in the evening, Maybe you shouldn't have your phone with you in your bedroom. Maybe that'll help you go to bed earlier in the evening. There's maybe a little planning that has to happen so that you can not be like this man and have trouble with belief in the Trinity and practice about who the Trinity is to become like the Trinity, and also the striving towards the 8th day, the whole purpose of our life, to be united with God. So he had this condition, and he was there, and he had endurance. Absolutely, he had endurance. 38 years, that's a long time to be disappointed whenever the waters are agitated. It's a long time to be there. Hot, he was probably thirsty often, he was probably hungry often. Probably his family brought him there in the morning and left him there until the night. And probably most of the time forgot to bring him water or food. So he was enduring, but he wasn't patient. The two are not the same. Endurance has to be accompanied with patience. You got to have both. Endurance is just to keep doing what you should be doing, even when there are not results. And that's always the way it is in life. For everything, even secular things, but especially in spiritual things. Keep praying. Keep praying for Uncle Bob, and Uncle Bob is still an alcoholic. What are you going to do? You're going to keep praying for Uncle Bob. Absolutely. But also, you're going to have patience. You're not going to think, what does it matter if I prayed for Uncle Bob? He's still a drunk. No, you don't think like that. You think, glory be to God for all things. I have an uncle, I love my uncle, I want my uncle to be better, I'm going to pray for him, I'm going to do a prostration. In fact, maybe I'm going to do 3 now, because I've been doing 1, maybe I'll do 3. Maybe I'll do something else, maybe I'll give alms for him or something else. You have to have endurance and patience. And this man clearly didn't have patience. Now we should venerate him. He was a pious person. And he gets a bad rap because of the last thing at the end of the gospel, and I'll explain that at the end. He was a pious person. He was not a turncoat. He was not turning Jesus in. He was naive. He actually thought the Jews would actually be happy that he was healed. And so he told them about Jesus. He didn't know that these people were snakes and were just evil-minded men. So, I guess I already told you. I don't need to tell you it again. So when he was asked by Jesus, dost thou wish to become well? What would be a good answer? How about yes? How about please, Lord? Huh? Even, oh Lord, I'm unworthy, but if thou would be merciful, help me. How about that? What does he say? He shows that he's cynical. He shows that he's not patient. He says, Sir, I have no man. As Jesus is standing in front of him, he says, I have no man. In order that whenever the waters trouble, he may put me in the pool, but while I'm coming, another goes down before me. So yes, he was enduring 38 years of misery, but he was also not patient. And this lack of patience made him miss what was right in front of him. Jesus is standing in front of him. Now, he didn't know Jesus. He probably hadn't heard much about him. Maybe, just a little bit of gossip about him. He wasn't in the in crowd. He couldn't go down and see him at the lake or go see him in the temple or anything. He was stuck in the sheep's pool. So he really didn't know Jesus. He might not have ever met him. He didn't know him. So, still, Jesus' presence should have, if the man had spiritual vision, he would have recognized, here was a man come to heal him. Whether he recognized him as God or not, he would have recognized, why would he be asking me unless he's going to help me? Do you want to become whole? Well, yes, I want to become whole. But because of his cynicism, because of his despondency, he said, I don't have anyone. He didn't have spiritual vision. So this is really the deepest part of his infirmity now. Not that he was paralyzed, that his mind was paralyzed. His heart was paralyzed. Yes, he believed he could be healed in some sort of far-out way, like maybe we believe we could win the lottery, but that's not going to happen for us. Those things don't happen to us. And it shouldn't happen to you either. Don't buy lottery tickets. That's dumb. But anyway, we think oftentimes things are far away. Just like Martha. Oh yes, I believe he'll rise in the resurrection. No, Jesus is standing before her, and clearly he's coming to do something. And she didn't have the spiritual vision to see it, because she was just thinking her brother's dead. But she knew Christ could raise him. But she wasn't having understanding. Same thing with this man. He's laying before Jesus, and he wants to be healed, and he's asked if he wants to be healed, and instead he comes up with negatives. I hate negatives. I just hate negatives. We shouldn't think negatively. Oh, some of you are making progress in this or that, or making very little progress in this or that, and so many times, with so many of you, I'm not revealing a bunch of confessions here. this is the way it is with people, that you're just negative, like I didn't do this right, I didn't do that right, etc. And what do when you talk like that? I emphasize the things you did right. Because we need to know that we did right. We really do need to know that. I was having a discussion with somebody recently, and humility is critically important. Without humility, you can't be saved. But when a person is a child and is 2 years old, then they should be praised. Now, not just praised, for everything, and not just praised without any meaning, but they should be praised for the good things they do. That was good that you shared with your sister, etc., etc. I'm proud of you for that, because we have to see progress in ourselves. Now, when we're adults, we shouldn't have to need people to praise us for things we should do anyway. But certainly children need that. They need to be praised properly. And they need also to be rebuked properly. But certainly, children should be praised for the good things they do. And they should always be emphasized that these things are because of God abiding in their heart and such. But this man was just sort of dead inside. And the Lord immediately, he doesn't require anything of him. That's the amazing thing here. He didn't require anything of him. He didn't say, do you have faith? All things are possible to those that believe. Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. He didn't do that with this man. He didn't challenge him to have faith. That's the boy who had a demon. He didn't say, oh, I'll go with you when Jairus says my daughter is ill. He didn't require anything like he required a little something of Jairus. He just immediately said, take up your bed and be walking. Just like that. And he was obedient. We have to be obedient. We have to do work. If God gives us a blessing, we must do work. Oh, the greatest heresy. You know that I've ranted about this many times. Now, what is it? It's over 500 years. This idea that you can be saved without labor. That's just one of the greatest lies ever perpetrated on the human race, that you can be saved without labor. Everything needs labor, including salvation. Of course, God adds to our labor. We can't labor enough for salvation. We're not strong enough. But we must labor. Because if you labor, your heart changes in disposition, and then God comes into your heart more. Because you have opened your heart more to Him. It's not that you've earned anything from Him because you've done something. We can't earn anything from God. Our deeds are as filthy rags. But if we don't change, if we don't labor, then we're closed off to God. Just like this man was closed off. Here God is standing in front of him. He says, I have no man. The man who says, do you want to be healed? Because he was just dead inside. And you're dead inside when God gives you something and you don't do anything. Like the man who had the demons taken out of him, exorcised from him, but he didn't do anything. So what? 7 more demons came back and made the last state of the man worse than the first. If a person's exorcised of demons, then they should be doing something, do good works at that point, and struggling and praying for those others who are demonized, etc., etc. But instead the man did nothing, and his last state was worse than his first. So this man was righteous and good. I mean, he had a hard time, and he had this bout with a despondency and lack of patience. But the Lord saw his endurance and rewarded it, and gave him an opportunity to show his faith. So he said, take up your bed and be walking. So he did. Now that brings me to, the last thing is he goes out. Let's go to the end, and then we'll talk about the worst part of this story, the most horrible part of this story. I always hate when I read it. It makes me feel chills inside that people can act like this. But the good part is that at the end, the man goes to the temple to worship, to give sacrifice. That's what he should do. And of course, Jesus finds him in the temple. And then he says to him, behold, you're become well. Don't go on sinning, lest the worst thing befall you. So then he knew, he knew that it was Jesus. And then, as I told you, I said I would tell you later, and I'll tell you a little more. He goes away to tell the Jews that it was Jesus. Very naive. But so it's good that the man worshipped. It's good that the man reacted to God's gift to him by worship. And that's what we should be doing. We don't do enough of it. Oh, by the way, I'll give you a little rant rabbit trail. It bothers me that so many of you receive communion, then you go out on the deck. Even people without children. What are you doing on the deck after receiving communion? What's going on? I mean, come on. If you went to a state dinner after you've had the main course, are you just going to leave? There's going to be some speeches. They're going to serve dessert and coffee. Are you just going to leave? No. Because you're not rude. Well, you're rude to God when you just leave Him. I see people that don't even have children, or I see 2 parents. 2 parents, 1 child. Or 2 parents, 2 children. You can handle 2 children by yourself. Somebody go out there, the other one stay in. That's very important. And then other people are out there during the communion prayers. We used to have the windows with a film on them, and Father Nicholas liked that because he said, when I look out, I see everything because the film is there, and I don't see everything, and I like that. And then I took it off. He kind of complained to me, but now it's kind of good for us to keep touch a little bit. There's a lot of things that I don't know. I mean, my back is turned to you. I don't know what you're doing. But now I can look out and I say, what are these people doing out there? You shouldn't be out there. Do you want to be like the 9 lepers or like the first, or like the 10th one? The 9 lepers they did what they were told to do, and that was it. They didn't go to thank God. The 10th one, the Samaritan, he went back to give thanks to God, to Jesus Christ who healed him, because he knew he was healed by Jesus, not by the ritual that they were about to go through. So don't go out on the deck. I understand. I get it. You get bored. You guys don't have a lot of endurance sometimes. You get bored. The kids are underfoot. I get that. Okay? But if you don't fight that, you'll never ever fight that. And you'll be, your kids will be grown, and you'll be 60 years old going out on the deck and not listen to the communion prayers. It's an obligation to listen to communion prayers. Long in here, you see it? He's at the hall. He told me something I thought was fantastic. So there he was. I think he was at Holy Trinity Monastery, and communion prayers were about to be said, but he hadn't communed. So he was walking out, and a monk said, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well, I didn't have communion." He said, "Have you?" And the monk said, "Have you ever had communion?" Yeah, I've had communion before. Then what are you doing? Not saying the prayers. I mean, can you say those prayers enough? No. So even if you haven't communed, you should listen to the communion prayers. Now, that was just a, grouchy Russian monk, but he was telling the truth, okay? So I'm a grouchy Irish priest, and I'm telling you, don't stand out on the deck when you don't need to. If you need to take care of a kid, go ahead. We try to turn up the volume and stuff, but it doesn't really seem to help. I know you're hearing it. Well, I don't know if you're hearing it. There's a background noise to your conversations, okay? And I know this is I'm a little bit, sometimes a little uncouth, but I have the vision, like when my parents had parties and everybody would be smoking a cigarette and drinking a drink. I think you can put cigarettes in your hands and drinks in your hands, it would look just like that. You're all just chatting away. What are you doing? Get back in church. You got to take care of a kid, do it. Absolutely. Take care of a kid. You should have your chotki, your prayer rope, and you should be praying and should be trying to listen as best as you can and take care of the kid. Otherwise, it's just, party. If you take communion, you must plan on listening to the communion Thanksgiving prayers. Now, I understand that you might have a child that's, ready to run. I get it. But you can have them ready to run and still listening to them as best you can. I understand it's not optimum. But absolutely, you should not leave the church without listening to the communion prayers. According to this monk, none of you should leave the church. So you should be taking up your bed and be walking, is what you should be doing. When God gives you good things, you should be working. So you've been given communion once, now you're on the hook to listen to communion prayers for the rest of your life, whether you have communion that day or not. And this is an important thing in our growth, to not give in to our sense of, I'm tired, I want to sit down, I don't want to listen anymore, I'm tired of the people joshing around, and maybe in the back, I'm sure you guys in the back are talking like crazy. Everybody in every church talks in the back. It shouldn't be, but probably some people are. And a lot of room up front. I even told a couple people, you can stand on the solea. You just have to move when we have I don't care, you can stand right here as far as I'm concerned if you don't want to hear what's going on in the back. That's fine with me. But we have to have a sense of thanksgiving to God that we will do work because of what He's done for us. And what has He done for us? Everything. Everything. So we owe Him that much. We also owe ourselves that much because that's how you get better. Okay? Now let's talk about the worst part of the whole story. The most horrible part of the story. The evil part. So the man is carrying his bed. It's the Sabbath day. And they say, what are you doing carrying your bed? That's not so bad. Maybe they didn't know that he was a paralytic. Maybe they were so elite they never even looked at him. Maybe they're like the rich man who walked over Lazarus on the doorway and didn't even care about him. But even the rich man knew Lazarus' name, didn't he? So that's not so bad. But then he says, well, it's the one who told me to take up my bed, the one who healed me and told me to take up my bed and walk. That should be enough of an answer. I mean, who's going to heal him? God. That should be enough. For a person with spiritual vision, that's enough. That's not work on the Sabbath. That's reaction to a healing and obedience on the Sabbath. And they, of course, hated Jesus. They said, who is that man? And the man didn't know. Because he never met Jesus except that morning, so he didn't know that was Jesus. And this is horrible. This is horrific. This is the major thing probably that brought Jesus to his trial and death. Because they hated him because of this. They hated him because of these healings on the Sabbath. Because he was not like them. He didn't speak like them. He didn't act like them. He was life and light to people. And they were darkness to people. And the people knew it, but the people were afraid of these elite Jews, these rich men. They were very rich people. Except they were also paupers, weren't they? Because they didn't have God in their heart. So, how would you evaluate something like this? Well, in the modern day, Should a policeman work on Sunday? Yeah, he's got stuff to do. He's got people to protect, or a nurse, etc. Should a stockbroker evaluate stocks on Sunday? No, he shouldn't. You're not saving anybody's life by doing that. That's just his job. So no, you shouldn't just do frivolous work on Sunday. Absolutely. But you should be always do good. I mean, the Sabbath has been transferred to Sunday, of course. The Jewish Sabbath was his day of rest. And the Christian, it's not really, I wouldn't call it a Sabbath, because the Sabbath had certain theological connotations. They were, sacrificing, they were remembering the sacrifice of the lamb, and etc. And but we have this day of reveling in the resurrection. So it's a day of activity as well as of rest. But certainly we shouldn't be doing frivolous things on Sunday. And we certainly should be struggling to, if anybody's around us that needs help, we should help them. I'll tell you the story that I told the kids. This is from, I think it's from the Evergarity Notes. And there was a spiritual father who wondered if his disciples were really loved God or not. And he was praying to God, reveal this to me. So he had, I don't know how many disciples, it was 2 or 3. And they were living far away from a monastery, and they would go to this monastery for great feast days. And so he told them, go and prepare things for the feast. And they went away, and he was going to follow them later. And they came, these disciples came to a man on the road who was on the road injured, obviously. And he asked, can I have some water or something? And I think they actually gave him some water, but then they said, we can't help you anymore because our spiritual father told us we have to get things ready for the feast. So I'm sorry, we can't help you. And they went away. Then the old man comes, and he sees the same person. And he, being an old man, takes this old man and puts him on his back and brings him to shade, and is going to tend to him. Probably miss the feast to do this. Certainly wear himself out. And then the man, all of a sudden, I think, am I confabulating this with Christopher? All of a sudden there was no weight on his back. It's like, it was an angel. Now he didn't know that his disciples had not done anything, but then he came later and talked to them about the incident, and they said, oh yeah, we saw him too. And then he realized that these disciples were legalists. They were just going to do things in a legal way without spiritual discernment. They should have missed the whole feast if they had to take care of this man. Absolutely. They should have gone to town and gotten him something to eat. They should have carried him into town, or carried him at least into the shade and found food for him. If they had to hunt and get a rabbit, they should have done it. But they were legalists, like these Jews. So you must have spiritual discernment about things. It's always good to do good. Always. And you should do good because there's God in your heart. These Jews that were judging the man for walking after they found out it was Jesus who did it, that's a terrible, terrible sin, terrible crime. We shouldn't be like that at all. We must be compassionate people. So see how much there's in this story? There's so many things in the story. It's such a delicious story. Now, I've told you before that I think the major theme of all of these stories is, all these gospel stories for the Paschalian period, is enlightenment. Basically, the whole theme of St. John's Gospel is enlightenment, because he saw the other Gospels and he said, we need a gospel that shows who Jesus Christ is and reveals him in all of his glory as man and God. Or should I say God and man? I guess that's the right direction to say it, the right order. As God and man. So it's luminous. The St. John's Gospel is luminous and is revealing things to us. And so these Gospels, especially though, are showing how people are enlightened. You see what happened to Thomas. Thomas didn't believe, so Jesus did something special for him so that he would believe. And you see the myrrh-bearing women and Joseph and Nicodemus, they had the wrong idea about Jesus. He wasn't dead. But they came to understanding. And the disciples slowly, the road to Emmaus has already been read this period of time. It was read on Tuesday. And, of course, now we have this paralytic story. The paralytic was enlightened by God. He was healed not only of his physical paralysis, but of his spiritual paralysis. Then we're going to have the blind man. We already had the Samaritan woman, right? Is that right? Did I skip one? Did we already have her? Yes? So we had the Samaritan woman. Is that right? Yes. The Samaritan woman is next week. I'm getting my arithmetic wrong. So we got Thomas, and then we got myrrh-bearing women, and then we got paralytic. Okay. So I've already covered all those. We got the blind man coming up. We got the Samaritan woman. That's all about enlightenment. But if you look at the theme throughout all of these, you'll see that people were encountering God and listening to Him. Now, this blind man didn't listen too good until he got to the temple. Well, I guess he listened when he was told to take the bed. But there's an encounter with Christ, and people, according to their ability, are taking in what Christ is telling them. And then Christ is tailoring what He says to them, what He does to them, so that they are enlightened. And that very same thing is happening with you and me. So we are having this process occur time and time again. But you cannot have that process occur if you're looking down and using your thumbs. You can't have that process occur if you're just being lazy. You can't have that process occur if you just skip your morning prayers. You can't have that process occur if you don't hear the communion Thanksgiving prayers. Or you just say, I'm just going to go take a load off out there because I can, and there's somebody to talk to. It's not helping you. All those things are not helping you. So this process is occurring with you and me if we let it. It's a glorious process, isn't it? To go from darkness to light. That's what's happening in each one of us. Darkness to light. Christ is risen.